Greetings everyone, this is Brad with Engadget, and we are checking out the Motorola Droid 3 with Verizon today. The Droid 3, as you can tell by the number, is certainly not the first in the series. You've probably seen the original Droid or the Droid 2. Maybe you've even gotten crazy and checked out the Droid 2 Global or even the R2-D2 Special Edition if you're a big Star Wars fan. But all in all, they are all looking pretty much the same. They have the same kind of form factor, full slide-out QWERTY keyboard. They got the little lip down there at the bottom, but with the Droid 3 there are a few design tweaks and improvements in hardware certainly. So we're going to go more into depth on that. First, let's take a little tour of the phone itself. So as you can tell, like I was mentioning earlier, we have the little lip here at the bottom, and we'll actually get more into comparisons between this one and the predecessor, the Droid 2 Global. I have one of those along with me today, so we're going to play around with that as well and just see what the overall differences are. Taking a brief tour of the Droid 3, first thing we notice is that it's a pretty huge phone. It's very boxy, bulky. It's got that keyboard there, so that certainly adds to the thickness. And we're talking about 13 millimeters thick here. In contrast, the thinnest smartphones that you'll find on the market today are roughly around 8 millimeters. So this is going to be adding quite a bit of heft to your overall smartphone experience. Now, it's a 4-inch QHD display, which means it's a high-def resolution display. Very nice, one of the best of its kind. And so you're definitely going to tell that when you play around with it for the first time. You're going to see a big difference between this and a lot of the lower resolution displays that you may have played around with in the past. The Droid 3 also has the frontward facing camera. As you can tell on the front there, it's a VGA. Nothing terribly special, but it's better than any of the Droids in the past, which did not have any frontward facing cameras at all. Of course, we got the lip at the bottom here. Now, the thing that makes this one different versus the others is that the lip is part of the bottom instead of the top. And we'll get into the comparison between this and the Droid 2 Global in just a little bit, where we show exactly what the differences are. We have the HDMI and micro USB charger cable. And then on the top we have our 3.5 millimeter jack and the power button. And on the side here we have just the volume rocker. So for myself, I hold the phone in my left hand. I prefer having the volume over on the left. So it's taking a little getting used to here. I do like the placing of the power button though. It's just in a good spot. Not necessarily out of the way, but it's not so natural that you're just going to accidentally press it all the time either. So on the back, we've got the 8 megapixel camera with the LED flash. That's really all there is to it. Speaker grill down at the very bottom. Now this one claims that it's a 1080p HD video. It's claiming that it's got the capture for 1080p. The thing is, when you go in, it looks like the software is limited on it. So perhaps the hardware allows for 1080p, but you're not going to be able to find that same kind of experience. Now, up on the top here we have a little place where we can just take everything off, take the back cover off anyways. And then we have a nice little SIM card with a spot for micro SD. The micro SD doesn't come with it. It already comes with 16 gigs internally. So if you need extra space than that, you're just going to have to provide your own card. And one other side note about the Droid 3 is that it's a dual-core 1 gigahertz processor. Runs off of Texas Instruments dual-core. It also has half a gig of RAM. We really would have liked to see them bump it up to a full gig, but half a gig is certainly not obsolete at this point in time, but it's getting pretty close. Any top-of-the-line handsets nowadays are starting to come out with a full gig, so that's what we would have preferred to see in a $200 smartphone here. Now let's dig into the keyboard here. The keyboard is actually very, very nice. I wasn't a very big fan of the Droid 2 keyboard at all. It was a little just too bubbly, and it was hard to naturally type on it. So it certainly took a lot of getting used to However, with this keyboard, first off, it's a 5-row keyboard, so it's got the dedicated number row. Absolutely love that. And I wish design teams would find a way to add this into their phones more often. So kudos to Motorola for throwing in that dedicated number button, or number row rather. Now all the buttons here, they're slightly raised, but they're not so high that they're bubblish. And that's a very important thing because I still feel the detent when I'm pressing things in, but it's not so high that it throws off my natural rhythm or my typing groove, if you would rather call it that. As for other specialty buttons, we've got the Add button. You've got your standard Android stuff, your search, and your voice activation, your voice search. The direction pad has definitely been an improvement over the last couple droids. If you recall the original droid, it took up pretty much the whole right hand part of the keyboard, where now they've gone more modern and just kept it really, really tiny. And that's all we really need anyways. Beyond that, I kind of wish there was a .com button. I always do. Usually my wish is not granted, so I completely understand that sometimes keyboards just don't have enough room for that. But at least the buttons are larger, they're easy to press, they're natural to use, so I'm very, very happy with that. Alright, on the left-hand side we have the Droid2 Global, and on the right we have the Droid3. They look very similar to each other. If you weren't looking closely enough, you might think that they're the same phone. However, as you can tell, it's a little bit larger screen on the Droid3. There's also a frontward-facing camera. And the bezels are also a bit larger on both the sides and the top and bottom. Now, going through some more size comparisons, if I can get this right. Alright, so the Droid2 Global is just a little bit thicker than the Droid3. Here's some more size comparisons. Here, let's actually get them. There we go. Like so. The Droid2 Global had the camera button, the dedicated camera button. That's one thing that we wish the Droid3 would have had. And then the Droid3 has the HDMI. So a few improvements there, a few misses. Of course, the 3.5 jack with the power button there on the top. And then the Droid 2 has the 5 megapixel camera versus the 8 megapixel. So a couple other big differences there. Now also, just to give a general comparison, here's the Sensation 4G with T-Mobile. And this one doesn't have the QWERTY, full QWERTY slide-out keyboard, so obviously it's going to be quite a bit thicker or thinner than the Droid 3. But there we also have the 4.3-inch screen of the Sensation versus the 4-inch on the Droid 3. And that's our overview of the Droid 3. Hope you liked it. This is Brad once again with Engadget, and we've got our full review